Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Flow. This is a podcast where we aim to learn and spread awareness of the lethal effects of period poverty, which is a public health crisis that affects hundreds of thousands of women, or not just women, people around the world. Follow along on our journey as we go with the flow.
All right, so starting off, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes. My name is Manju Bangalore. I started Operation Period, which is a 501c3 nonprofit based out of Oregon. And we are helping to achieve menstrual freedom through 5 different avenues: art, advocacy, education, community engagement, and direct aid.
Cool. So,
sorry, no, you go.
No, I was just gonna say, if it looks like I'm looking back and forth, it's because I have questions here and the screen here. So, in your work so far with Operation Period, just what has your experience been like? Have you guys come across challenges, misconceptions? Just what has your overall experience been like?
Yeah. Starting a youth-led organization, because I started Operation Period when I was 17. It's pretty hard to get people to actually validate you financially. Like, a lot of people support you and are like, I'm so happy young people are doing this and leading the movement and stuff like that. But when it comes to actually getting funding, it's pretty hard. And you honestly have to ask people to take a chance and take a risk and bet that you're going to do the thing you say you're going to do. So that's, now we're on this curve where we are getting funding and we're growing exponentially. And it's largely thanks to my incredible staff, especially Roz and Yesrel. So that's been really massive in terms of shifting how we are able to do our work and how we're able to expand our work. And honestly, I think the weirdest part of it all is that actually talking about the issue has been one of the easiest things. And I guess I'm talking to the right people a lot of the times, but talking about period poverty and menstruation in general, anytime I've gotten a disgusted look or a concerned, surprised reaction, someone in the room has stepped in and been like, hey, periods are normal and you should get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that's happened quite a few times where my mentors have stepped in or anything, so that they let me continue to take space up in a positive way. So that's been honestly really nice. And I think that our approach to talking about the problem is a bit different. And we've added, other orgs are obviously doing this as well, but we've also added a sense of urgency to period poverty, and kind of identifying it not just as yeah, we should do this because people are embarrassed to take their menstrual products to the bathroom at school. Yes, that's true, but people are also dying because of period poverty. So let's talk about that because this is a life or death issue.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned bringing a sense of urgency. This past year obviously has been very trying on a lot of people. How do you think the pandemic has affected your organization or just people that you know suffering with period poverty?
Yeah, I think the pandemic hasn't necessarily widened gaps in different systems or institutions, but I think it's exposed them and shown us that our healthcare system is not working. Our social safety net programs are not working as intended. We're missing a lot of components that are pretty critical to have a population that is happy and thriving and successful. So I think, sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought because I saw something outside. Give me a second. So that's been, I think, really important to highlight. And there have been a lot of menstrual equity activists and advocates who have highlighted that we are just exposing the problem. We are showing that unhoused people are already facing these problems, and then now they're at risk for another virus or disease. But I think one of the positive things is that we've seen community come together, and these funders, whether they're individual donors or institutions, they've been hey, we need a rapid response to this pandemic. So that's been, it's weird saying a positive in a pandemic, but that's been, I've been very thankful for the community that's come out of this, because it's given us the opportunity to serve a lot more people.
Right. So kind of like a silver lining.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow,
you
that's
know,
really
sorry.
interesting the way you worded that. What were you gonna say, Samantha?
Oh no, just yeah, you know, like period poverty is, I mean, obviously like the pandemic has definitely, I think, done had a big impact on it, but kind of like going back to what you said earlier, people are dying from period poverty, which is something that like not many people would realize. But it's true, you know, like people, if you don't have like your menstrual products, then you can get like infections and stuff. So yeah, like, well, have you come across any kind of like situations in your work, like where you're like, wow, like this is like a real issue that could like take someone's life?
Yeah. I wish I could pull up her name right now, because I want to recognize her name. I don't want to just say a 14-year-old Kenyan girl. Um, Give me 1 second. Is that okay?
Oh yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So her name is Jacqueline, and trigger warning, this is about suicide. So if you want to mute for a second, feel free to. I'll just give a thumbs up when I'll stop talking about it. But uh, a 14-year-old died by suicide in 2019, I think, or maybe a year before that, because she was basically in her classroom and she started her period for the first time. And she didn't realize it, wasn't really sure what was happening. But not only did the students make fun of her for bleeding through her outfit, but the teacher did as well. And obviously, shame is a really big part in all of this and in the topic of menstruation. And the next day, she was found having transitioned. So that's like a story that I really want to highlight, and a lot of Kenyan menstrual activists have been highlighting, because this is a life or death issue. And I always tell my staff and whoever we work with that we could give out products to every single person who bleeds for the rest of their lives, like sustainable products or disposable products, whatever. And we still wouldn't have solved the issue, because there's like an underlying stigma for all of this. And that's the reason legislation isn't passing. That's the reason policy isn't being written. So yeah, it is a life or death issue. And I think the more that we can get people to recognize that, the easier our jobs become in this space.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not, I mean, like, it's not an issue to be taken lightly. Like, it's not just about girls not having like pads or tampons. It's about the fact that if you are like, it's about being a menstruator in this world where you will be hit with like shame and jokes and like, just ew, don't talk about that, that's gross, ew, don't talk about that, like no one wants to hear about that. Like, well, then what are you supposed to do? It's like, why does it, like, why is it like that? Like, it's like not just like, period poverty is so much more than like getting people the supplies that they need. It's giving them the support, like the emotional support, the, if they need like someone to talk to, if they need other resources that aren't just like products, you know, like if they need like um just some kind of like hope at all, like that, it's just a lot more than just products.
Mm-hmm, for
Um,
sure.
since starting this podcast, we've definitely learned a lot, especially with the people that we've interviewed who are talking about switching the conversations from private to public, like, especially since so many people see this as like a taboo topic. So have you, like, since you started this organization, have you seen like a lot of people doing that, like being more comfortable talking about this in public, or and are you hopeful that soon there won't be like such a stigma attached to the name?
Yeah, I think that more and more people are realizing that this isn't necessarily a defining characteristic of anyone, but that it's an important one, and that menstruation should be normalized. Um, we at Operation Period, we've shifted from using the phrase menstrual inequity, although we do talk about that because that is about the access to products, and Jennifer Weiss Wolf was credible in coining that term. That's an important component, but like I said, products aren't the only important component. So we created a new term called menstrual freedom, which is now part of our mission statement. And that's trying to achieve this larger vision for people who menstruate to have bodily autonomy. So it's based on the work of like Black radical feminism. And we have taken some of those ideologies, obviously crediting them, and molded it into a definition that basically says that we do not support the existence of any social, political, or economic system that prevents a person from experiencing bodily autonomy or their period in an empowered and dignified way. So that might be like any racist institution or any sexist institution, whatever it may be. But like, we don't feel like we can support those types of organizations as an organization and as individuals if they're preventing people from experiencing their period in a dignified way. So that's a bit harder of a conversation. Like I can be like, yeah, we bleed, normalize it. And people are like, okay, like you can talk about your period, that's fine. But being like, hey, we need to revamp a lot of stuff in our society to make it so that it is a livable society for people who menstruate. That's a really hard conversation because people like the status quo. People do not want to change radically and they don't want to do it quickly. So a lot of people, obviously not everyone. So that's the harder conversation, I think. And that goes more into the root causes and looks at like education inequity, the way incarcerated people are treated in society and how their periods are. It talks about like child marriage, maternal mortality, like all of these intersecting things. And the reason I'm bringing that all up is because someone once told me that it's really hard to get people to care about a new thing. So like people usually care about like 5 to 7 main things, like maybe like putting food on the table for their kids and making sure their kids have a good education, making sure they like their job, etc. So if everyone, all of us, myself included, only have the capacity to care about a few things, making them care about period inequity or menstrual freedom is really hard because I have to convince them that it is equally as important as putting food on their table. But if I can connect period inequity or menstrual freedom to something they already care about, hey, look, you care about your child's education. Well, your child has classmates who are not finishing school because they don't have period products. Now they can care about it because they already cared about that issue. So I think that's a major thing that's giving me hope. And that's a strategy we employ at Operation Period and why we do these panels that don't seem related to period equity. We do ones on education and immigration and the carceral system. And sorry, this is such a long answer. I'm almost done. But that's the reason we do these panels and events and book clubs on things that don't seem related, and then we tie them back into period inequity and menstrual freedom.
Yeah, I really like that because it's like, yeah, okay, so maybe period poverty is not on your mind, but like you kind of personalize it in a way to make it like, oh yeah, like now I look at it from this like perspective and it's becomes an issue that they maybe people want to get involved in. So yeah, no, I think that's a great strategy to get people to like um gain an interest.
Yeah, I definitely think that I agree how everything's so connected, like if you lift up everybody, then it just, yeah, but, yeah,
Yeah, because
sorry,
yeah,
trouble.
it's like a way
I
of
guess,
almost being like, oh, like, okay, well, this is a problem, but I know that you have your own problems, but here's kind of how this relates. And suddenly it's like, oh, well, yeah, you're right. Like that is something that people should be out there like spreading awareness about. That is something that I should like uh teach my kids about, to tell my friends about. Like that is something that I should definitely get involved with because there's a lot of people who are suffering. So
Yeah, it's definitely a great strategy to show people that it's not just a problem that affects a certain part of the population. It affects a large portion, if not all of them.
Yeah, it's kind of like being like, you know, this is not just like a girl problem or something. It's like just a societal issue that needs, um, you know, got to spread awareness on it. It needs people involved and taking action.
Yeah, and I think it helps us have a certain lens at who, a certain view of who needs more help than other people, you know, like prisoners or um, sex workers, or, you know, like there's certain groups of people that are systematically disenfranchised. So I think it's interesting to view that through a lens of period inequity, you know.
Yeah, like on your website, you have something called Across Borders We Bleed.
Mhm.
Um, do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, this is an older campaign. I'm happy to talk about it, but our website, because of me, is not up to date, and we are in the process of updating it. Our Instagram is way more accurate about our current work. But Across Borders We Bleed is something that we're still trying to accomplish, but it's basically highlighting the period inequity at the border in concentration camps and detention facilities, whatever you want to call them, where immigrants are being detained and their human rights are being violated. So a lot of folks are not getting menstrual products. And if they are, it's not enough. It's the same as in prisons, where incarcerated people in federal prisons often only get 2 pads per month. I don't know the statistics about the border facilities, but I'm sure it's comparable. And, you know, there's been reports that people are sitting in pools of blood because they have nothing to absorb the blood. So that's just not an okay situation in any like sort of human rights or dignity, any of those concepts. It's not an okay situation. So Across Borders We Bleed was our attempt in drawing awareness to the situation at the border. And it was at a time where there was heightened interest in the immigration system. And so we were trying to make people be like, if you care about this, then let's talk about like the rights of menstruators in these facilities. And we are still working on figuring out if we can get more products to people in those facilities. That's really hard because a lot of times donating products into facilities like that is seen as like contraband or like stuff that you can't take into a facility. So maybe giving it to shelters outside of those facilities. We're trying to figure it out. It's obviously not an easy problem to solve, but that was our campaign to highlight the intersection of our immigration system and period inequity.
Yeah, you know, like I think that's really I think it's cool that you guys branched out to like you know, like people on the border and just people who are being detained because again, it's just like not something that you would think about. Like, oh yeah, there are people who are menstruating and they're being detained and it's like, well, what do you want them to do? Just like bleed through all their clothes or like that's awful and that's unhygienic and that's you know it's not right. So I think it's really cool that you guys that your organization like kind of branches out to more than just like people maybe like in your area. Yeah, I think it's cool.
Yeah, and we do, I said we're based in Oregon, but we have school clubs across the country and we do international work as well. So right now we're working with partners in Kenya and in Guinea. And we had a pilot program in South India for a year or two. So we try to definitely branch out of Oregon as well.
That's cool.
So you mentioned earlier that you started Operation Period when you were 17. What I guess would you say like your aha moment is? What in
Sorry, did you guys hear that too? My FaceTime call, so sorry. You said what was my aha moment for what?
for starting the organization? Like, what inspired you?
Yeah, I think well, there's a couple things that happened, but the primary one was I was just having a really bad period in February of 2015 and really bad cramps. And it was before I had medication to regulate the pain or regulate my period. And I was complaining about it to my parents. And I kind of just like stopped and looked out the window, and it was pouring rain. And I was like, wow, imagine if I was on the other side of this wall and I was outside in the pouring rain experiencing this. I would be in such a worse position. And then I was like, there are people who are experiencing that right now, like a mile away from my house. There are so many unhoused people that our community is trying to care for, but our local government is not doing a great job at caring for. And I know a lot of them probably are dealing with cramps just like mine. And so I just literally did a Google search on my laptop, and I was like, periods, homeless people, or something like that. And nothing was really coming up. And but if I could find anything, it was mainly interviews being like, from like homeless shelter directors being like, yeah, we get like toothbrushes and socks, but we never get menstrual products. And I was like, so let's get menstrual products. So I was on, I accidentally got put, this is a weird story, different story, but at U of O, I accidentally got put on an all boys dorm floor, which was not the best situation for me for a year. But I started talking about this idea. My roommate was a girl, so I started talking about this because she was someone who menstruates. And I was like, yeah, I kind of want to start like an org or an initiative or something. And a couple guys overheard and were like, yeah, let's start it. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah. So they were supportive in the idea, but I ended up filing the paperwork, and we became an org officially in April, but our first meeting was in February.
Wow,
That's
that's
really cool.
I think it's really important to bring in, um, you know, men too, you know, or people who aren't affected by menstruation.
Yeah, like men need to be educated too. I mean, like it's like sure, like maybe men don't necessarily menstruate, but does that mean that they just should be like, oh well, not our problem? Not
Yeah.
really. Like they should care, or they should at least be educated on it.
Like they know people
Yeah.
too.
Oh, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
like for sure. Like it's like, well, you know, maybe you yourself don't menstruate, but surely you have like a mom or a sister or a girlfriend, or you might have a daughter one day. Like, you should, you know, like just have some like knowledge on it, some knowledge and some like empathy. And yeah, and I was wondering, out of your work that you've done with Operation Period, what has been like really rewarding? Like, or have there any been like really, have there ever been really like rewarding parts of your work?
Yeah, I think two things come to mind. The first just being, this isn't so much rewarding as something I'm proud of, but since our inception in February 2015, we have not used gendered language. We've always said like people who menstruate or people who bleed or menstruators. Um, and we actually pushed back in 2015 when Representative Grace Meng was drafting the Menstrual Equity for All Act. We actually pushed back and more like, if you're going to say it's the Menstrual Equity for All Act, you can't just talk about women and girls. You have to say people who menstruate, because there are trans men and non-binary people who also menstruate. So that's just something I'm really proud of. And yeah, so that's something I'm proud of. I don't know if that's necessarily like rewarding. It's just like an imperative that I think any menstrual organization or activist should employ. But then the other thing is, I think the most rewarding moment was when we did have our pilot program in South India. After about a year of us providing not just menstrual products, but we provided money for doctor's visits and nutritional supplements, that type of thing, extra food, because we were looking at the problem holistically and not just trying to hand people menstrual products. I got to visit the orphanage that we were serving, and it was a crazy few days, but one of the girls came up to me in the program and told me that she had gone from bedridden and anemic to a track athlete at her school. And I was like, whoa, we did that, or we helped do that. Obviously that's her, she's doing it, but we helped. Like, she told us that it wouldn't have been possible without our program. And so when we often don't get to actually talk to the people that we're serving because well, we obviously have conversations, but our clubs are the ones that now deliver products to their local communities. So our clubs might get to have conversations, but often it's not, I mean, it's pretty straightforward process. We drop them off at the shelter or the school, and then like, we don't really get to have these conversations all the time. So I'm very, very happy anytime I get to have a conversation and be like, what can we do to improve? What helped? What didn't help? Like, those are such important conversations for me because I never want our organization to be stagnant. And I especially want our organization to not be existent at some point, because then it means we solve the issue.
Oh, that's interesting actually. I think that's cool. I mean, like, really, you guys helped change that girl's life. I mean, to go from being anemic to being like an athlete. I mean, that's kind of something I think is cool that you guys did, because that means that not only do you guys just supply like, or not, that means that not, you guys know that it's more than just like products and stuff, because your period can take over like your whole body. Like, you get cramps, you need to be like, you know, nu- what's it called, nutrition. I don't, like, you need to have like nutrition, and you need to just be like, it can just really take a toll on your body. So I think it's really cool that you guys like recognize that, and have been like, it's not just about like giving people pads, it's more than that. Like, it's it can, a period can be like life altering if you don't have the right means and the right resources and everything that you need. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna ask, what can people like us, or people who are listening to the podcast, or they want to get involved, how can they help fight period poverty or equality for menstrual equality?
Yeah, there are great organizations. Like, I love my org, but we work with incredible partners like For the Menstruator or Code Red Co. Um, that are doing really incredible work that I urge you to support. Um, you can just do a quick Instagram search or Google search to find them. And then I think if you want to get involved with Operation Period, you can go on our website and start a club with us. You don't automatically become a club if you sign the form, but you can fill out the form, and then we'll work with you to start up your club at your school or high school or college. And then we can start supplying you with products to deliver to your local communities, and help you. We can give you our education curriculum to go present at middle schools and other high schools, or at your high school. We can help you do art campaigns. We can help you run different events like panels and stuff. So our clubs are really involved, and we're really involved with our clubs. So that's a second thing. And then the third thing is, if you don't want to start a club and you aren't able to financially support the orgs that I mentioned, just have conversations. Like, just be a little more comfortable with being uncomfortable. Regardless if you menstruate or not, like, there are many fact sheets from many orgs that you can just like do a quick scan of. It'll take less than 5 minutes of your day. And then you'll be equipped with a little more knowledge about how this issue impacts other people, and how you can help change that. And then the last thing I would say is, if you don't want to do that research, you can't financially support, and you don't want to start a club, when you hear a joke that diminishes someone who menstruates, just don't laugh. Just doing nothing in that situation tells them that what they said was not funny. You don't even have to say that's not funny. If you just do not laugh and do not give in. And I know a lot of femme identifying people and girls feel like they have to like laugh or say something in the right moment. You don't, and you don't have to laugh at that joke. So if you can't do any of the things I mentioned, just do nothing in that situation. And I promise you that you're going to get them to second second guess what they said.
Yeah, if you're the only one laughing at a joke that you made, it's not funny. It's just not. If you have to be like, it's funny.
Or if you have to explain why you think it's
Oh
funny.
yeah, if you have to explain the joke afterwards, like if someone makes like a period joke and you're just like, I don't get it. Like this is why it's funny. It's not like yeah. No, but all of those, I mean, are I'm at a loss for words. Okay. Your organization is like amazing for a lot of different reasons. I think it's really cool that you guys have the that you guys give the opportunity for like if we wanted to go and like make a club. I mean, that's really cool, like that is definitely something that will cause kind of like I feel like an effect of like um just people seeing people talk about period poverty, spread awareness about it, start organizations about it, uh, just give to like an organization, just anything like that will make a difference. So I think you guys are a great organization, and we want to thank you again for making time to be on our podcast today.
Of course. Thank you for, extending the invite. This was super fun.
Have
Yeah.
any closing remarks or anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. I think you should just keep listening to this podcast if you're already doing that.
Oh my gosh, yes, the flow
Yeah.
listeners. Oh my gosh. Thank you again so much. We wish you luck on your future with your organization, and yeah, thanks for all the work that you do, because um you guys are helping out a lot of people out there who are suffering and they need help.
Definitely making an impact,
Mhm.
and that's really great.
Thank you. This is awesome. Hope y'all have a good day.
You
Thanks.
too.